And all they're good for is forcing people to plead guilty. And I got to tell you, I don't know, something about it, struck a chord with me. The public defenders provide a huge service. They have a lot of clients. They don't get to pick their clients, right? Someone comes into my office, and I get to pick my client. I get to say, you know what, this person's a little too aggressive, or I don't know that I'm buying this story, and I get to choose whether or not I want that case or not. Public defenders don't. They get assigned a case. And I'm going to start this part of the video out. I went to a seminar, I don't even know where it was, somewhere in the country. And I had the privilege of being in a group of fairly established attorneys, and the vast majority of them in the group were public defenders. And there's probably two. One was from California, who I still keep up on Facebook with, and another gentleman. And I remember thinking during their mock trial, because that's what we were doing, we were practicing, I don't know, everyone was assigned a case, 4 different cases, and I remember going, holy crap. Oh, I know where it was in Macon, Georgia. So it was in Macon, Georgia, and there were 2 public defenders in my group, and I was astonished. Like, I was going, man, I thought I was good at my job, but maybe not. They knew rules. They knew how to address a jury. Their cross-examination was on point. Their arguments, just the way they theorized and put their case together. Because what happened was, right, you go to this training center, and it's to train attorneys, and it's to train attorneys to be better, to better represent their clients. It's called the National College of Criminal Defense. It's out of Macon, Georgia, and they do a great job there. So let's say, what's harder, a murder case or a child sex case? Well, here's the truth. I no longer take child sex cases. I try to avoid those. I've never actually had a child sex case. I've had people accused, and I've represented people, and I've had I would say good results, but it was usually where I was able to show that the allegations were false. I've never had a murder case, but let me stick on with kind of what I'm talking about, because I think it's important that the public defender's office get their just dues. These 2 public defenders in Macon, Georgia, and I wish I could just say their names off the cuff, but they probably don't want to be a part of my video, but outstanding. If we were in a boxing match, I wouldn't have been able to go 2-3 rounds with them, because they would have crushed me. They would have stopped me. They would have dropped me with a body shot or knocked me out. So I have personally met public defenders that I just think are at the top of their game. They're just outstanding people, outstanding work ethic, and they wouldn't be at a week-long practice seminar to practice murder cases and child rape cases, just like the person who just chimed in, because those were the cases. There were 4 randomly assigned cases, and you get a packet about a week before you go, and you study that packet, and then you prepare it. They have actors that come in, and for jurors, and you have to pick a jury. And then they have witnesses and victims that are all actors, and they play the role, and they know their parts very well. So they go under direct examination, cross-examination. There's arguments that you can make, but it's basically a whole trial, and you come up with your theory of the defense, and then you present it. And it helps a lot, man. Does it help? It helps a lot. And I wish I could go to one, every year. If I could find more, I would go. But those 2 public defenders, I'll just never forget. They weren't from the same office. They were from different parts of the country, and they were outstanding attorneys. My understanding of dealing with appellate cases, I don't do a lot of appeals cases. I have a woman that helps me out, that does contract work, that used to work for me years ago. She's a great writer. the public defender's office appellate program tends to be really some of the best of the best, because they have so many appeals. There's so many issues where they're litigating. So when you read, like in Florida, the Florida Law Weekly, how many cases, and if you subscribe to it, because I think anyone could subscribe to it, it's about $200 a year, $300 a year. And you can see all the cases and how the case law changes every week, hence Florida Law Weekly. And the public defenders that do that are, seriously, it's like second to none. We're talking some of the best people. So, but I've heard so many times, public pretender. Look, they're not pretending. A lot of attorneys, as they get out of school, they either go to the state attorney's office or the public defender's office. They're trying to get trial time, they're trying to get courtroom time, and they're doing their best, not only for their own careers, but they're making their careers better by how well they represent you, or the community, if it's a state attorney's office, or the public defender, if they're representing someone that's charged with a crime, that's indigent, that doesn't have enough money. So I've seen public defenders that are horrible. I really have. I'm like, oh my goodness. But guess what? I've seen just as many private attorneys that are horrible. Like, that I just thinking, like, how did someone sign a contract at the office and get money and give you money? It's so just as many bad public defenders I've seen just as many private attorneys that are bad. The difference is that the public defender is working at a lot lower rate. I don't know what a public defender makes, but you got to remember, they went to 4 years of college, 3 years of law school. They may have a master's. They may have a LLM, which is like a master's in law after you get your doctorate, which is sort of weird the way they do that, but another day for that. So it's important to know that we really need to judge the lawyer by each individual case and the growing amount of cases. Public defenders deal with more cases generally than private attorneys do. Can they spend the time? I don't know. I've never worked in the public defender's office other than when I was a CLI in law school at the University of Miami. And I had one trial. I still remember it like it happened yesterday. February 13th, 2003. It was my CLI, my last year in law school. And I had a robbery case, and I represented a juvenile. So the trial was in front of a judge. But I'm not going to bore you with war stories. So my knowledge of how the public defender's office works is limited. I know they have staff. I know they have investigators. I know that they have paralegals and legal secretaries. I know that they have a bank of motions, right? So when a particular issue comes up, I know that in each public defender's office, there's usually at least like 100 public defenders. And I'm thinking larger, like Miami, Broward, Palm Beach, right? So, the general areas that I've worked in. So they can go to each other and say, hey, I got this case, I have this issue. Oh, I had a case like that 4 years ago. Here, let me share my stuff. So I think it helps because you have that large office and they get to work individually, but also they can collaborate on things. So saying that all public defenders are bad or that they're a public pretender, that they're pretending to be a lawyer. I was in court in front of a Broward County judge, Judge Diaz, not too long ago, and the defendant said to the judge, "Well, I want a real lawyer, not a pretender." And the judge got on the, hey, like, this is a lawyer, like, this is your lawyer. This is someone that's gone to school. That's someone who's studied and taken a very difficult exam. Someone who gets continuous training every year through their continuing legal education. So you should give them some respect. Now, if you want to hire a separate attorney, that's your business, and okay, but we can't lump people, right? We can't say all people of a particular race act a certain way. We can't say people of a certain faith act a certain way, right? We can't say, all car salesmen are bad, all lawyers are crooks, right? Is there validity in some of these things? Of course there is. But each individual should be judged judged, I guess. I don't like to say we judge others, but we do. Judged by their specific acts or deeds. In this case, the public defender's office. I don't think that you can say, just because you don't have the finances to hire a private attorney, that the public defender stinks, or that they're horrible, or they're pretenders. Like that's not true. Now, you have to make that determination. You're going to meet your public defender. You're going to sit down and have a meeting. Sure, you might be sitting in jail. They may not rush right to your office, right to your jail cell, because maybe they're assigned 100 other people. So each person, maybe they talk to you and you only need 15 minutes, but perhaps another client needs 3 hours, and another client needs an hour, and another client needs 2 hours, and they have court, and they have depositions, and they have meetings, and they have trainings, and they have time where they collaborate. So how much time can a person spend in a day, right? You have to keep these things, you have to consider these things when you're making these determinations. So if you get a lawyer and he's a public defender, and it takes him a week to meet with you in a jail, or 3 weeks to get an appointment, or a month to get an appointment at his or her office, that means you have a month, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to formulate some of your questions, right? To write down your facts of your case, to write down your questions, your concerns, and then to go over them again and tighten them up and make them shorter and more concise. And so you're not, talking about this and then talking about this and talking about this, and because, they have to answer those questions. And the same thing for a private attorney. A private attorney may get you in quicker, but he may have a lesser caseload. Now, there's been times where I've carried 230 cases at one time, and I remember a public defender, I think it was Broward, said, kind of made a joke about, she wished her load was as light as mine. And I was like, just out of curiosity, how many cases do you carry? She's like, I have like 88 cases. So I'm like, right now I got 253 cases, and I'm handling them all by myself. So, but I wasn't a comparison like, I'm, you know what I mean? Like, but I remember going, okay, well, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. She might go from 88 to another 88 in a month. Now, as a defense attorney, as a private defense attorney, I don't tend to bring in that many cases. Again, I get to choose the cases. So someone calls me and I'm listening, and they're saying things that are just outlandish, and I get to go, you know what? It's not a case that I'd be interested in, but I could suggest another attorney, or if you Google, or if you go on Avo, or, Find Law, whatever, you may find someone that's better suited, but just not a case that, and it may be a case that I don't have a lot of experience in, right? If someone comes to me and they've been charged with child molestation, I'm probably not taking that case. Have I taken sex cases before? Yes. Have I won sex cases? Yes. Have I lost sex cases? Yes. Have I pled sex cases? Yes. But they're not something that I prefer to do. So less and less as the years go by. Now I'm at the point when someone calls me with a sex case, unless it's just an extraordinary thing, I tend not to take it. I may, make a recommendation to another attorney, or, send them to Google, or, Avo or Find Law, one of these places where they can find lawyers who, kind of focus in a particular practice area. But let me kind of gather my thoughts. I'm doing this off the cuff. So I had a case. I'm not even going to talk about that. But I've been in a courtroom where private attorneys that do big advertising, that have a big following, where they brag about how good they are, right? Where they tell war stories in the cafeteria with other attorneys. And I'm thinking, hey, like, I still go watch cases after 18 years. I still go, and I could be a first-year lawyer, could be a first-week lawyer, could be a 25-year lawyer. I recently, during COVID, once trials started coming back on, I wore my mask. I went into the courthouse, right? They required everyone to wear masks. And I remember a judge going, hey, what can I do for you, Mr. Foley? No, just watching, Judge. I can always learn something. And I watched a case of a DUI with a young prosecutor that was like looked like maybe their first case, so they struggled a little bit. And then I saw them going up against the defense attorney who was fairly well known in my area, and I had never seen them. I really don't know them. Hey, hi, how you doing, as they walk by each other, but don't know them. And I was going, wow, they are horrible. And I honestly, I didn't get to watch the whole case, but I watched several directs and several cross-examinations, and I watched closing. And I got to tell you that the first year prosecutor, first 3-month prosecutor, even though that prosecutor made a bunch of mistakes, the defense attorney, who had been doing it for like 20 plus years, made a lot of mistakes. The cross-examination was not tight. Yeah, attorneys work. So I'm just seeing a note. Do all attorneys work to 7 p.m.? Yeah, on for the most part. Well, I guess it depends on the attorney. I can't speak for every attorney, but if you have a case, if you have a motion, if you have depositions that you're preparing for, a motion to suppress, you're going to stay up. You're going to stay up to get the job done, right? Because I don't know what the general consensus is, but I think most people, not all, right? Most people don't like to lose. Most people don't. I was in court recently, and it was something last minute, and I was getting off of a case, and I started to make an argument. The judge just cut me off and did what the judge did, which was not very nice. But I tried to make an argument. I was just cut off. I got an objection by the state, and ultimately the judge is like, "Nope, I'm doing this, regardless of what you say, regardless of your argument." Now, could I have filed a writ, and could I have appealed her decision, or his decision, and made filed a motion for reconsideration? I could have, and I may have if I would have stayed on the case, but I ended up withdrawing because the client was very difficult. But when normally I'm preparing for a motion to suppress or some sort of evidentiary hearing, I'm going to stay up pretty late at night. I would say most times because I'm paranoid about looking like a fool, and I never want to come across as a fool. And even if you study hard, depending on your facts, you could look like a fool. So I'm not big on feeling that way. So I always study. I might be up till 3 o'clock in the morning, knowing that I have a motion to suppress at 1:30, go to bed at 3, wake up at 7, shower, kind of review, go to court, do what I got to do for my other cases, and then don't eat lunch or breakfast, and start go to my motion to suppress or my trial or whatever it may be. So I would like to think most attorneys do that. I would think so. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. But back to the public defender. Also, how much do most lawyers in criminal law make per year? I think that's a random thing. I think that I remember looking this up a few years ago. I think the average defense attorney in Palm Beach County and Broward County probably makes about $100,000 a year as a private attorney. There's some that make $1 million a year, but I think the average or probably the majority is probably about $100,000. So not what people think they make. Obviously, if you work hard, you can make more depending on the types of cases. Sometimes people need a defense. I'm constantly cutting my fees to help people who don't have the funds. Now, just because you tell me you don't have the funds doesn't mean that I just go, oh, let me cut my fee. But if someone is struggling, if someone's going through a hard time, I'm going to help them, and I'm going to work on the amount with them. So does that cut into my bottom line? Of course it does, because there's only so many hours in a day. So, but the goal is to help people, right? To make a living while you're helping people. So again, in Florida, I would say probably about 100 grand is the average, but people make much more than that. I know attorneys that make $1 million, $2 million, something like that. And I know everybody who kind of makes between 100 and $1 million. I mean, I think that's the range. So I guess it depends on your quality of work and how many cases you take on and the types of cases. Sex cases and murder cases get paid a lot more. So you don't need as many of those to hit the big numbers, right? Anyway, going back to the public defender, I saw recently those attorneys, and then I walked in on another case. Yeah, can you do family law and criminal law too? Yes, a lot of people do that. I'm not a fan of that. I think that, well, family can kind of go hand in hand, but it's difficult. I have a very good friend, Orlando, who does criminal and family. He's very good attorney, solid attorney, well-spoken, makes his arguments. I've done criminal cases with him, and I've even done some injunction restraining orders, but he also does divorces and modifications and all that stuff. It's hard to do. It takes a special person. A lot of people dabble in things, but I always say, who's the greatest basketball player of all time? Right? I think most people would agree, probably Michael Jordan. He tried baseball, pretty good, but not so great, right? But greatest of all time at basketball. It's hard to be the best at everything, right? So for the last 18, however many years, 17, 18 years, wherever I'm at, 2004, I became an attorney. So I'm right at the 18th year. This will be my 18th year. I've done a lot of criminal cases. I think I've gotten good. Am I the best? Probably not. Am I the smartest? Definitely not. I bring passion, and I keep bringing it year after year. But now I'm bringing a huge focus to personal injury. So, and I'm really focusing to be good at that, and meeting with other attorneys and taking classes and doing what I can to help people in that arena. So anyway, you can do family, you can do personal injury. Be wary of the attorney that does 3, 4, 5, 10 different areas of practice. You just can't be that knowledgeable. That would be an extremely difficult thing to do. So when you go to a website and you see that they practice, family law, personal injury, criminal defense, tax law, employment, workman's comp, all that stuff, probate, you probably should run the other way, in my humble opinion. But back to the public defender. I just think that the public defenders, that people need to realize that there are hardworking, good, educated people who care, right? You don't, if you can get a job as a private attorney and make that and escalate up pretty quickly, right? Because I think a public defender may start at 40, 45,000. I guess depends on the jurisdiction, but you can get a job working for a private attorney, making that, and maybe get a percentage of what you bring in. So these people are trying to help, right? And again, they're bettering themselves as they work on your cases. Every case is an experiment. There's no case that's exactly alike. So you'll learn on the job. Sometimes people call me, just quick to the side. Someone calls me and goes, I've been charged with 893, Like, I don't know all the statutes, right? They're going, well, statute. Like, yes, I write on my YouTube video and I have statutes, but I don't remember them all. So I just go, what's the charge? Just tell me the charge. Anyway, someone typed something, but I kind of missed what they were saying. Each case presents a new challenge. Each case, you're fighting the case. A lot of people hire my office and other offices to negotiate, to plea bargain. And that's a choice that the client makes. I present two different options, one to fight, one to to do a diversion or a plea. It's two different prices. So depending on what I'm doing, if I'm fighting the case, I'm doing case law research. I'm on Westlaw, Westlaw, Nexus, Lexis. I'm on Google Scholar and all these things. I'm pulling cases that have the same facts together that are as close or similar to my client's case, so I can present an argument in a motion or possibly to get some additional knowledge. I don't know every statute. I haven't represented someone on every single criminal statute in the state of Florida. So, yeah. Anyway, so your public defender is kind of doing that too. They're going through each case and they're going to confer with colleagues and they're going to do their case law research, and they might have a paralegal to help. But again, it just depends on the individual. How hardworking are they? How passionate are they? How nice are you treating your public defender? How nice are you treating your attorney, right? There's ways to turn people off, to shut them down, right? Overly being critical, calling them a public pretender, saying they're not a real lawyer. Does someone really want to battle for that person? Probably not. So kill with kindness, kill with respect, be interested in your case, follow up with them on whatever time they do. You can watch my video on 10 things to know about dealing with your public defender and your private attorney. It's important. Keep that written communication between the two. Write down the questions that you have so you're concise, because there's only so much time in the day and they need that time to help not only you but their other clients. So anyway, this is a shout out to the public defenders that I know, the public defenders that are really fighting the battle, and don't always get the recognition. I mean, there's some really good public defenders out there, and if any private attorney says something different, listen, I'm telling you, there's some really good public defenders, really good, like amazingly good. So whether that's who you receive as their client, whether that's who you get assigned or not, I don't know, but don't just be negative. You dealt a deck of cards if you don't have money to hire a private attorney. And even hiring the private attorneys, like I said, I've seen just as many terrible private attorneys who are getting huge dollars, people that are charging huge fees. I knew of an attorney that charged 25 grand on a first DUI and pled them guilty. No motions to suppress, no motions in limine. I think they took a deposition and they got 25 grand to plea. What do you think I think about that? That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. No one's time is that valuable, right? So keep in mind who you see on a YouTube channel, right? I could be horrible. You don't know, right? You look at the reviews, you look at the case law, you talk to the person, you see how knowledgeable they are, and you pray. You pray that you come across the right attorney, whether it's a private attorney or a public defender, because there's equal amounts of greatness and there's equal, amounts of just crappy lawyering. So I'm attorney Roger P. Foley. I had my breakfast. It's digested. I'm drinking my water. And I wish you guys the best of days. And whatever lawyer you have, treat them with respect. Let them know the urgency, but be concise. Do your best to make your points and ask your questions. And just ask them to be in your corner, that you really need help. And if you want to fight your case, tell them from the beginning, go, listen, I really don't want to plead my case. I don't want to take a plea bargain. I don't want to get time served. I don't want to become a convicted felon. I don't want to plead guilty to something I didn't do. I'm hoping that you'll believe me. I'm going to do my best to tell you my version of events, and I'll answer any questions that you have. Review the discovery. We'll review it together. If there's any videos, audio, and make suggestions in a nice way. And I think you'll be successful. And I think whether it's a public defender or a private attorney, that will increase your odds of being successful and having an attorney that will fight for you. Anyway, God bless you. Have a great day. Figure out how to turn it off.